You know how they say owners look a lot like their dogs?
You see a resemblance?
Yeah, a little bit.
You think we look alike?
Yeah,
We
kind of.
both got white hair.
You're both really tall.
Yeah,
Beards.
yeah. In 1814, took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. Took a little bacon and we took a little beans and we caught the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. Well. Good. Good boy. Good boy.
This is a good size comparison. His head compared to my head. To let you know how big he actually is. Yeah, it's a good boy.
Escape artist almost up we go, and in we go. Yeehaw. Alright, little one needs to go out. This way. This way. Whee! Ain't nothing like goat wrangling. So, pro tip, if you want to trim a goat's foot, a veggie peeler works pretty well.
I think oftentimes when people talk about the topic of survival, they're thinking short-term survival. They're thinking lost in the woods. They're thinking, ship lost at sea, whatever it may be, and you're trying not to die in the immediate, right? But very rarely, because it's not as sexy, it's not as cool, very rarely do people talk about long-term survival. What would it take to survive, to live a life being totally self-reliant? What does that mean? What's that look like?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about self-reliance, and I think since COVID hit, there's been this resurgence in homesteading. You seen that? Like,
yeah,
there was a time when all the chickens, you couldn't find chickens, everybody wanted to get chickens, and you see this return to the land.
It's becoming more relevant.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's definitely some pressure on it, but it's a steep learning curve. Homesteading. When we moved here 1 year ago, almost exactly to right now, and in that 1 year, we were just talking about it and doing the math, and we kept a list. So in the first year, these are the losses. We have 2 goats that were lost. Both of those to poor health. We had gotten them from a herd, and they had some issues that we didn't know about. So lesson learned there. We had a total of 16 chickens. 1 rooster was killed by a dog. 3 were killed by hawks, coyotes, fox, whatever got it. And there were 4 killed by a possum. 4 just disappeared. They were MIA. And then there were 4 others that just died. We don't know.
Just because.
Yeah, just because. There was also 14 rabbits. 11 of those were babies that had died. 3 adults died. We had 10 guineas that escaped. Her idea, not mine. Never get guineas, children. You talk about every morning I'd be in there milking goats, and right next to it, we had the little stall set up.
Yeah.
And those are the most annoying creatures in the world. Anyhow, they escaped, and subsequently, as I was walking around the area, not just on our land, but adjacent land, some of my neighbors, I would find kill sites of guinea feathers.
They got it.
Just by attrition, they would slowly,
Yeah, one at a time.
And then we had 2 cats that disappeared.
For some reason.
And just mysteriously, one then the other. So something got them. Could have been a hawk.
Hawks, owls, something.
Something. Yeah. And it's not like them to just leave. They were pretty tight. So 2 goats, 16 chickens, 14 rabbits, 10 guineas, 2 cats, and a partridge in a pear tree.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
That's how many you've lost.
That's the losses.
Yeah.
Now we currently have 37 chickens, and we've kind of stabilized there, and we haven't had any death for a long time.
Well, it's like all my chickens. Almost all my chickens got killed, all kind of at one time.
Yeah.
Mostly by stray dogs, people's dogs coming through and wiping them out. But it seems like when a predator discovers a food source, they continuously go back after that.
What we noticed with our chickens, the white chickens, like the white leghorns, I guess they're more visible, and they got killed.
Yeah.
Right off the rip.
Yeah.
And those were 5 of those were given to us by a neighbor, and then my personal favorite are the Rhode Island Reds, and we haven't really lost many of those. We've got a pretty eclectic chicken flock out there. It's got a little bit of everything in it.
But I think the point to drive home is that it's right now. Currently, it's not that big a deal if you lose a chicken, right? I mean, it sucks. You put time and effort and energy and feed and all that stuff into the chickens, but if one gets killed, gone, not that big a deal. However, if there was no grocery store to go to replenish the food stores and no grocery store to go buy some chicken from, that's a much, much bigger deal, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they don't raise their chicks from scratch. They'll order them from a hatchery.
Yeah.
Getting an egg to fruition as a live chicken is
it's an art.
Is an art in itself, and there's not many people around that do that.
Yeah.
I think we do take resupply for granted.
Yeah.
And now that's just the animal husbandry side. On the other side of that, we, as you know, I planted fields here on our land and at 2 of my neighbors' lands adjacent to us, and we had some crop losses there. What we discovered is ultimately, if we were going to have beans, we had to make cages out of wire and put those around every single
Deer
plant.
eating them probably.
They just destroyed it. Yeah, we put out all kind of things like perimeter alarms with the 209 primer, flares, whistles, solar lights, and that's the only thing, the solar lights did work.
Really?
Like the deer would come in, the light would pop on, and you could see where that light was cast. The deer would eat right up to the light
Yeah.
and eat around that area,
They
but
wanna
they would
stay
not go
hidden.
into the light.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you could do off grid is the solar motion sensor lights. They did work, but I find that the cages worked better. So that's a lesson learned. And now this winter, my plan is, with my youngest son's help, is to, make, say, 100 more of these cages. We did about 30 last year. We probably need 100 or so more. And then every year just do more and do more, There has to be patience with this stuff. Like the mushroom logs we were just looking at, they're just now starting to fruit. They were done 10 months ago.
Right.
So none of this stuff is instant
You're thinking
gratification.
long term.
In our culture, we're used to just point, click, add the card, swipe the card, they hand it to you through the window, and instant gratification.
If you want an apple from
Yeah.
a seed,
Yeah.
you're gonna wait like 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like, we've got year 3 plans, we've got year 5 plans, you have to be very forward thinking with this. And so when I see people get these ammo cans with some seeds in it, and they think, all right, there's my backup
You're
plan.
good to go. Yeah.
I'm set. Just the implements, like you have to have all the hand tools necessary, because I don't put a lot of stock in mechanized things, because I'm of the opinion that one day we won't have fuel.
Yeah.
Or it might be so cost prohibitive that.
Well, again, it's like long term versus short term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can store as much food as you want. We could stack food, we could fill this barn full of food. At some point, you will deplete that.
Yeah.
Then what? So I think the desired end state in the survivalism, if that's a community, I think the desired end state should be production of 100% of your own food.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're doing that, you're not self-sufficient. You're not self-reliant. And you hear all these companies use names like that, self-reliant, self-sufficient. Really, that's not even possible to be self-sufficient.
No, all by yourself?
No.
By your lonesome? Yeah.
No.
I guess maybe depending on where you're at, but even then,
You're still dependent.
calamity comes along, you get hurt, whatever it is, you're done.
Yeah, you're dependent on something.
Something.
Like let's say you're gonna hunt and that you self-sufficient because you're a hunter.
Yeah.
Did you make the rifle?
Right.
Did you make the ammunition?
Exactly.
And don't give me this crap about, I reloaded it. Did
Yeah.
you make the component, like from scratch, unassisted by a supply and logistics?
Did you mine the
Like, did you make the
land?
gunpowder?
Yeah.
Like we are so dependent on this logistics system.
Yeah.
And like even if society collapses tomorrow, we can live pretty happy off of the bones of that for a long time to come. We're not going to go
the
back
clothing that you're wearing.
to, we're not going to go back to chipping flint
No.
tomorrow. Like
No.
there's so much metal laying around.
Yeah.
Somebody will figure out how to turn that into a knife,
That's
Take,
a-
prime example.
Pipe.
There's a piece of pipe and a piece of something.
Piece of something that wasn't a knife before.
And now it's a knife. So
That's right.
yeah, I think that long-term view is starting to be a focal point for people. They're realizing, it's good to know how to rub sticks. It's good to have the bug out bag, but all that does is kick the can down the road a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing as a people to ensure our security? And ultimately, security, when you say security, what do you think of? Guns, right?
Right.
Or tactics. But really, food is the ultimate security. Clean water source is the ultimate security.
Sure.
And how many people in America in these cookie cutter houses, subdivisions, do they have an independent water source free of the grid? No.
None.
And even in the country, there's a false sense of security. Oh, we have a well.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yeah.
However, are you gonna be getting that water out of the ground?
Exactly.
Like, how do you get that water out of the ground from 360 feet
Yeah.
if the power's gone?
I think that we take all that stuff for granted. Everything. It's so easy to get water. Like you're saying. But if power goes out, even if you have a well, how do you get water?
Exactly.
Where do you go?
And that moment is not the time to go, oh, we need to.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could do, I don't know, we lower a soup can down there with a string.
Yeah. And everything that, so let's say, like in my example, on my property, I can walk to the creek, and I can get buckets of water, and I can bring it back up, I can filter it, I can boil it, all that stuff. But that's a job. You know what I mean? It's not and that's taking away from other stuff that I could be doing.
Right.
So it's always just chipping away at the list of to-dos. Start at the top. Water is, to me, a huge priority.
That's
right?
the first question.
Yeah.
And that's where there really is with the thought process and the way that we approach problems is kind of the same in a short-term situation versus a long-term situation. Because the first question in both cases is, where is the water source?
Yeah.
How am I going to render the water potable where I can drink it? Do I have containers to hold and transport that water?
Mhm.
That's true in a very austere survival situation when the plane crashes, and it's also true of a homestead.
Yeah.
And the things that we are going to look at: water, shelter, fire, food, security. It matters in the woods and it matters on the homestead.
Yeah.
So none of that changes. It just changes in scale.
Right.
Like if you're going to produce food so in such quantities that we're going to eat that 100%, and we're going to have enough surplus to save over through the winter, put it in a root cellar, dry it, smoke it, can it, whatever you're going to do with it. That's a full-time job.
It's more than a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a double
You're-
job.
You're in that
Double duty.
garden like all day.
Sun up, sun down.
That was me. Like
Yeah.
during the growing season, I was out there all day trying
Yeah.
to make food happen.
Yeah.
And now that it's wintertime, I'm shifting my focus to, maybe putting up more firewood, doing some of the building tasks around here because I have
Setting
time.
up for the next
Yeah,
season.
building cages
Yeah.
for protecting the stuff I've not
Yeah.
planted yet.
Yeah.
A lot of planning goes into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I hear stories from my granny all the time. My granny grew up a very rural, agricultural existence. I mean,
Mhm.
they grew 90+% of what they ate, and she said they'd start before the sun came up,
Mhm.
and when the sun went down, they were exhausted. There was no kids fighting to go to sleep. Like I don't want to go to bed. There's none of that.
Yeah.
It was just collapse.
None of this. I'm bored.
Yeah, none of that.
No,
That
they
was
just
not a thing. They were working all day long picking beans and.
Yeah, you don't
all
tell your
this
parents
stuff.
in that type of setting you're bored because they'll throw a
Yeah.
pitchfork at you and say,
That's
hit
right.
the field,
That's right. Yeah.
And even that, we've got mowing sites, the old school stuff. I've planned that far ahead. Like if we're back to pre-industrial revolution levels
Yeah.
of agriculture, I still can go out and get
Still can
hay.
do it.
I researched how did they do haystacks before we had square bells and round bells.
Whole.
That stuff you
Yeah.
have to know, and there's a lot of minutia to that, and those details matter.
Yeah.
Like people think it's hoodoo, like plant by the signs.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
It's absolutely a
Uh,
thing.
So you gotta listen to all the old timers on that because they knew what they were doing.
Absolutely.
And they had a lot less support than we had.
Mm.
They'd come into these coves with a mule, a
An
pot,
axe and a saw.
an axe, a saw, a pocket knife.
And think about that. Think about coming into a place like this. Imagine this hill before people were here and cleared it all. This had to be cleared by hand,
Mhm.
right? You had to build your home, your log cabin, whatever it is, by hand.
Yeah.
Which one log think about what it takes to process one log in a log cabin with,
Oh, I've
with
done it.
hand tools.
Yeah, I've done the hand tool thing.
It is a
Just
oh,
you take
it's
a
such a
brazen
job.
bit and you make a hole,
oh yeah.
and then when you're done, you're
Yeah.
sore and you're like, I just made one.
Just cutting the tree down.
Yeah.
Big job.
Right?
Getting that log. Hopefully you cut it down where you're going to build your structure. Hopefully, but if not, you got to get it there.
Gotta transport it.
Skinning it
Yep.
with a draw knife if you got one.
Or bark and spud or
yeah,
whatever.
if you got one,
Yeah.
skinning it, all that into one log.
Mhm.
And now we just go to Home Depot and pick up a pallet of lumber.
Yeah.
Get it
Don't
deli-
think
we get it
anything
delivered here.
Yeah.
Hire the builders to do
And
with power tools.
the people that
Yeah.
settle these mountains, they make wooden wedges.
Yeah,
First you had to make the wedges, then
Yeah.
you had to cut the trees, then you drive those wedges,
to split. Yeah,
along the line, and they would bust out planks of
Yeah.
wood, and they're like, yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
Get it to where it would fit.
Yeah.
Very, very austere living conditions. And that is a transition that you're not just gonna suddenly go from working in a cubicle to carrying a large oak log on your back
No.
uphill,
you will break. Your body will break. yeah.
There has to be an acclimation period to
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
Like this past year that I've been here, there's been a lot of that. I mean, I'm not totally green when it comes to things like this, but I've never done homesteading.
You weren't doing it full time.
No, not to the extent that I do now.
Yeah.
Now we're all about it. And
Yeah.
it's been eye-opening.
My brother-in-law, we joke he's got office hands, tender office hands, and he gets blisters. He's
Yeah.
got to be wears gloves and motion.
Right.
That would be a big learning curve. Getting past just that stuff.
Well, and back to community, like
Yeah.
we're always talking about.
Yeah.
Like this wood stove, it would not have happened without
Yeah.
one of our friends giving me the stove
Yeah.
out of his barn. It was just there. And it wouldn't happen without you and me working together to do this.
Yeah.
And it's community. Even right now, we've got a neighbor who is very, very ill. He has a goat herd. He has chickens. He has a homestead. And we're taking care of that for him because you have to stick together. I mean, there is no safety net here. If you get sick or you hurt your back, if something at your house needs to be done, nobody's coming to save you except your neighbors, like
Right.
your people in your
The
community.
people that actually care.
Yeah. That's how you know who your friends are.
Yeah.
When you're like, yeah, I'm going to be physically incapable of doing my chores, which take up the chunk of the day here. And I'm gonna need you to catch that for
I'm
me.
I'm gonna go ahead and need you to
Only
cover
for
that.
like 3 months.
No big
it's
deal.
not a problem, not a big
Should
deal.
be fun.
Yeah, and when it's 2 degrees outside and you have to go out and milk the
Yeah.
goat and split the wood,
Yeah,
it's all mindset. Same as in the woods. It's all mindset.
yeah.
Like you have to be resilient. You have to be strong.
That
And planning.
yeah. I mean, just to be honest, if I'm honest, the thought of like right now, if you told me I had to do it right now, the thought of having to produce all of the food that my family eats is terrifying.
That's very terrifying, and
Yeah.
I'm terrified for our country.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the infrastructure. Carrying capacity on a piece of land is a thing. That's real.
Absolutely.
So if you look at these houses stacked in there,
Yeah.
and you drive through those subdivisions, and I just see death, because you have no water,
No chance.
no source of water.
Mhm.
Maybe the pond, if it's one of the golf communities that's gated and they got the pond,
Sometimes there's big fish in those ponds, by the way.
you might. But eventually,
Yeah.
there's no fish in there.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have clean water figured out.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be very, very sick within days or weeks, and probably dead.
Poor hygiene.
Yeah.
Dirty water. Yeah.
Yeah, you drink dirty water, you're done. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
And then even if they planted corn or some crop on every square inch of dirt in those little putting green of a lawn they have, it's not enough land.
No,
It's not-
can't do it.
The ratio, the population density of people to dirt, the dirt cannot carry the people, which means you get a correction.
Yeah, that stuff like the backyard gardening and
Mhm.
things like that. I think that's good practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like good, like, oh, this works, this doesn't work, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. I think that's great practice. And if I'm honest, again, that's kind of what I've been doing is
Yeah.
practicing, but never any large scale feed the family stuff. And like I said, that's a daunting thing because that's shifting to making that your full time gig.
Mm-hmm. And no wonder people used to die when they're 44 years old,
Yeah.
How many times in the past few years, if we didn't have antibiotics or we didn't have this thing,
Antibiotics have saved my life.
saved my life.
Yeah.
If I didn't
100%.
have that, I would have died a couple times.
I would have died at age 30
Mhm.
from a stingray.
My first son would not be here because they didn't have the technology to get him out into the world
Yeah.
without killing him and mom.
That's exactly
I
right.
mean, we are artificially enabling so many people to live.
Well,
Yeah.
survival of the fittest is not a thing.
It's not a thing anymore,
Yeah.
but it's coming back. It's going to be back in fashion pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that's where people hear the Great Reset. I think there will be a correction, and I base this on my observations of nature. Some years there are rabbits everywhere. You're tripping over rabbits,
Absolutely.
and there get to be too many rabbits, and then like all of a sudden there's no
Yeah.
rabbits.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
Well,
find,
it's the ebb and the flow, right? So,
Yeah,
so
cyclic.
there's a lot of rabbits, so then the predator population increases, and then
Mhm.
they eat all the rabbits, and then the rabbit population decreases, and then the predators decrease, and then
Yeah.
it comes back up, and so it's just a constant cycle. Yeah.
I think people sense it. Like we're on the edge. We're on the precipice of this huge transition into whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just on an intuitive level, they're like, we got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
This eating Cheez-Its out of the box, it's not going to work. Not going to be a thing for long.
Cheetos.
So community, that's definitely it.
Yeah.
But I think the whole point of this video is like there's a lot of people that are just getting into it, and if we're honest and if we look at it, we're not self-sufficient.
No,
Because how did you get here today?
I drove my truck.
You drove your truck, which fuel, oil, money,
I can't make that.
all that, tires, can't do any of that.
Nope. When those tires wear out, I could not make another set of tires.
Yeah.
No matter how long you put me.
A lot of the work I've done around here has been done with a chainsaw. So
Absolutely.
I didn't make the chainsaw. I didn't produce the fuel for it. I don't have control over that. That's why things like this, low technology,
That last.
this is good to go now.
Yeah.
As long as I'm physically able to wield a bow saw and an axe or a hatchet, I will not freeze.
Yeah.
Like we can cook food, we can purify water, we can warm our bodies. So I think the thing to do for people, if I were going to give them advice, is study history. Like what did our forebears do before we did it the way we're doing it now? And when you listen to them, like you've talked to your grandmother a lot, they got a lot of wisdom there.
You're right.
It's really eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's not going to look like the way it looks now.
Mhm.
Everybody's sitting around. fatter,
Just killing
they
time,
need to be
more.
on their device.
Yeah, but yeah, our
That's gonna
priorities will
change.
shift. Yeah,
That's going to change. It's going to be like, I'm going to go to sleep now. You pull guard duty.
yeah,
I'll see you at 04. We're going to grab the hose and go down and work in the corn. Is hoe politically correct? Let's not say hoe. Let's say weed removal apparatus.
weed removal apparatus.
We'll grab the weed removal apparatus and we will go work in the corn patch.
That's right.
But if you're doing that, like you said, that's it.
That's
All
you
of
got
your
time for.
daylight hours are about that.
Yeah.
And what if you have a crop failure? What's your backup plan
What's
then?
the plan then?
And it happened.
You raid somebody else's crop.
I was just studying about the Irish potato famine.
Yeah, the potato blight. Yeah.
You talk about just, man, can you imagine
Yeah.
living through that? And not so much me, and it's easy as an adult, especially as you get older, to be like, well, self-sacrifice or
Sure.
I'm going to die anyway. But watching your kids and your grandkids and your nieces and nephews and all the people you care about, watching those guys do without, that's got to be horrible.
And starving is a very sad, slow, like depressing way to go. I mean, I've been on the verge of starving before. I know you have, and it's like, it's just this
You mean
lethargic.
starving for love, or are you talking about food?
Well, both.
Oh,
Yeah.
not emotionally. Okay. I just didn't
That's
know
right.
where you were with
It's
that.
very similar. Very
Yeah,
similar.
it's very close. The feeling, all the feeling is the same.
That's right.
Kind of a
But
bond.
it's just that like slow, lethargic, like
Mhm.
it's not even painful. It's just
Hopeless.
yeah, yeah, just
Check out.
just slow misery.
Mhm.
It's very very depressing.
But like we always say, control the controllable.
Yeah.
And we do what we can. And
Do
we're
the
doing
next thing.
that.
Yeah,
We are
the next
doing
thing.
that. Like you're doing it, I'm doing it. We're not to 100% yet,
No,
but we're further along than we were a year ago.
Yeah.
Aren't we? I feel like we are.
sure.
Like we're
Absolutely.
making progress.
Yeah, absolutely. If you, like you said, some of the best advice I've ever been given was from this guy right here. Is that you? Yes, right.
I am pretty wise.
That's right. Is that you don't necessarily try to look at the giant big picture. Look at what you've got to do right now. Live in the moment of right now. What needs to be done? Because looking at the giant big picture of I have to produce all of the food that my family's going to eat. That is
And then I gotta
overwhelming.
dig a root cellar and build
Yeah.
that. And then I got to put it in there.
Yeah.
And then I got to do the thing.
That's overwhelming and depressing.
You got to break it down.
What do I got to do right now? And
Okay.
check that box off, and
Yep.
then what's next? And then what's next, and focus on that. I mean, it's good to have a big picture in mind. You know
sure.
what the goal?
I got a
long-term-
general idea where I want to
Yeah, but don't dwell on that and
Yeah.
just look at your list and be like,
be. Mhm.
just
Yeah.
run away from it. Yeah, because that's
It can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people that are new to any of it, bushcraft, survival, preparedness, weapons and tactics, when you realize that each one of those things, let's just say, weapons and tactics, that is just a broad category. And under that, each subset of skills that you need is its own discipline that can take a long time to really, it's a long thing.
Yeah.
How long have I been doing it?
Long
My
time,
whole
yeah.
life before they had a word
And are
for
you
it.
an expert on any of
No.
it? No,
You know what
absolutely not.
X is former,
Yeah.
and spurt, well,
Yes.
what that is.
Everybody know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people call it a drip under pressure.
That's
So you're a former drip under pressure.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So that's not
Yeah.
survival.
Yeah, I don't claim to be an expert on anything because being an expert, you're assuming that you know everything on the topic, and you don't
I learn something every day.
every day
Every
on
day.
even the simplest things.
I was told once by a wise man, he says, every day of life is school and you never graduate.
That's right. You'll never fill this up.
You never graduate.
Yeah.
There's so many things out there,
Mhm.
but you got to pick one and go for it. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but
I'm never
going
gonna grow up. Anyway, I think that's enough discussion for
Yeah.
today. Thanks.
Good luck.